The conditions here in Lebanon are really tough for families. The airstrikes continue. Every night you hear some volume, some scale of explosions. But of course, it's not limited to the capital city. It is happening right across the country, including and especially in the south of Lebanon. The airstrikes have damaged people's homes and forced many people on the move. That according to the government of Lebanon, over 1 million people are now displaced across Lebanon, and we estimate that at least 300,000 of those are children.
Where are they going?
People are being forced to flee their communities. Most of the people I met have left either South Lebanon or the southern suburbs of Beirut, and they're travelling north, either from southern Lebanon up to Beirut or further north into the mountains in the north of the country. And the response is having to scale up rapidly to find places for these people to go. And so many public schools are being turned into shelters. There are now over 900 shelters across Lebanon, a dramatic increase from just a few days ago when that number was closer to 200. And over 600 of those 900 shelters are at capacity. So that just gives you a sense of how quickly they're filling up with people. The families that I met at these shelters seem to have almost nothing. I met people who told me that they left with only the clothes on their back, and one mum said to me, the lucky people are the ones that have a change of clothes.
You talk about these shelters that have been set up all over Beirut and all over the place. Are they safe from airstrikes?
They should be protected under international law, that because they're civilian objects, schools, and that they're housing civilians, that these should be safe places for people. But as we've seen in other conflicts around the world, this isn't always respected. So we are urging the parties to the conflict to protect civilians, including the places where they're sheltering.
Are you worried? Are you scared being there in Beirut?
I am confident in the systems that look after us with the United Nations here in Lebanon. I think that I would be frightened if I was a child, and I met many children this week who are terrified.
Tell me about that. Can you talk to me about some of those children that you met?
I met a girl called Ghazal who's 9, and she told me that she and her family were leaving the south of Lebanon to come to Beirut, and they were driving up the highway, and an airstrike hit a car right next to them on the highway. And not only damaging that car, but also the car that Ghazal was in. Glass went everywhere from the windows. And it was so damaged that the family couldn't drive the car. They didn't have money to get a taxi, and so they had to walk the rest of the way. And so that in itself was traumatic for this little girl. But then as we were talking and playing in this shelter, we had a balloon, and the balloon popped. And I was shocked at the reaction that Ghazal had. She jumped into the air. And she said she thought it reminded her of the car being hit on the highway next to her. And other children around jumped too. So it's one example of how children are being traumatized by these airstrikes. And so many children yesterday told me about that.
What is UNICEF doing in Beirut right now to try to help children and other people?
2 key things are happening in the UNICEF response at the moment. Firstly, supplies. People are leaving with only really the clothes on their back. So we're going to shelters to help turn the schools into places that people can live. So we're bringing mattresses and blankets and water and kitchen supplies. We're also providing medical supplies to hospitals. We've already brought in 100 metric tons.